on Wednesday, August 14th. This is the Woodlands Water Agency Board of Trustees meeting for month of August. We begin with a roll call vote. Excuse me, a roll call of our attendees. Trustee Ron Wilson.
Here.
Trustee Walt Lashevsky.
Here.
Trustee Neil Gaynor.
Here.
Trustee Brad Hauk.
Here.
Trustee Kent Maggart.
Here.
Trustee Keith Lincoln.
Here.
Trustee David Smith.
Here.
Trustee Hugh Connett.
Here.
Trustee Bob Lutz is here. Trustee Paul Martin.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. We have an agenda. We'll move to the opening invocation and the pledges of allegiance. Heavenly Father, we come to you today as an assembled body. We humbly request that you bless our meeting, our community, and our nation. Help us to work diligently, always for the common good and in the best interest of those we have been elected to represent. Guide us to be insightful and prudent in our intentions, visions, plans, deliberations, decisions, and their fulfillment. Work through us to provide a spirit of welcome to all in attendance, to engage in respectful and thoughtful dialogue and discussion with wisdom and understanding and humility. Amen. If you wish, prior to reciting of the pledges of allegiance, please take an additional moment of silent prayer or reflection in the manner of your preference. Thank you. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pledge to the Texas flag.
On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
We have an opportunity to receive comments from the public. First is Miss Anna Casio. Miss Casio, nice to see you this evening.
Anna.
Welcome.
Thank you. I live in Mud 67, and since I have a conflict next week, I needed to come to this one. We have had several times in the past, since I live on North Country Gate that has a green belt behind it, like a lot of places in the Woodlands do, that receives the water from Jones Forest, from the Horse Pen Branch. They'll drain down, they go all the way around and behind North Country Gate. It ends up on the east side, draining out between Windsor Hills and Lone Star College. That's a better drainage area. Ours is green. I know you've gotten my email, and I'll give you one for you to share with your
Thank
group.
you.
And I know you're 67, and here's a few other to share. I heard that Mr. Mooney was retiring. I'm sorry I missed saying goodbye to him because he's always been extremely helpful, like Jim Stinson has in the past. And I emailed him earlier this year around, I don't know if it was February, March, or May, and he says, when it quits raining, Anna, we're going to get to you. We know we got to do it. It's on our roster. And I'm here now that we're dry to make sure that although Mr. Mooney may not be here, that's crucial to our neighborhood. Yeah, I'm aware of that our streets get water. They're meant to do that. That's fine. But it's got to have a way to drain out. And that is our way out. And if that's not clean and dredged out, there's going to be a lot of people, again, Windsor Hills is a 55 and over community, that will have a lot of issues. So I'm here to please don't take us off your work calendar now that you're aware of how crucial that area really is, unless you're there to see it.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm present. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. We have Miss Kim, I can't read the names. Porter?
It's court, yeah.
Court, okay. Gallagher Incorporated?
And we'll be addressing that later in the meeting.
Okay. Very good. That moves us then to agenda. What agenda item would that be under, Eric?
Item number 16.
Okay, all righty. Okay. Agenda item 4, receive update on Region H. Arthur Bredehoff. Good evening, Arthur.
Good evening, Mr. President, trustees, members of the public. We're here to update you guys. We had our quarterly second quarter meeting on August 7th. I want to bring you some of the highlights from Region H Water Planning Group. Texas Water Development Board is requiring some pretty specific and very important elements to make sure they're in our next plan for 26 through 31. And some of these elements, the Woodlands MUDs and the trustee boards have talked about this and have actually planned and executed projects on these three items. One is about conservation strategies. One of the conservation strategies that is being talked about and trying to see if all communities can go to this is a defined irrigation plan. The amount of water that this would save in the demand side of the water calculation would be very strong for Region H and for the state. But the Woodlands has practiced this for a long time and has been successful at it. More and more communities we're seeing putting defined irrigation strategies in their plans, and they want to include that in the overall water plan for regions and for the state. The impacts of flooding, planning how you're going to handle flooding, what projects are going to come in your strategy to deal with flooding, and also drought response. So these three items are being looked at very heavily at the state level by the Texas Water Development Plan, and they'll be screening these three items specifically in the different regional plans that come their way for taking into account 26 through 31. Another item we worked on is revisions to the current plan, which is 21 through 25. And some of these revisions are coming forward because communities want to apply for SWIFT funds at the state level so they can execute projects that are originally in our plan but need to be modified so they can take into account current and future demands. For example, Baytown East Surface Water Treatment Plant, the change to their plan was approved by Region H and counter approved by Texas Water Development Board. So they'll be able to execute projects to work on current capacity and also future needs. And now by changing our current plan, they'll be able to apply for SWIFT funds. Another project that came forward, and this is very interesting, this came forward by the city of Houston. This is in step one. Step one is it has to be approved. A change to the current plan has to be approved by Region H. So we approved that. And what the city of Houston wants to do is they want to increase capacity on treatment at some of their current facilities. We've heard a lot of stories about Houston, what's going on there. It's very interesting that they're coming forward so that they can apply for SWIFT funds to improve their infrastructure.
Is that water or wastewater?
For this, they're looking at wastewater first. And what we approved it at Region H, it goes down to the Texas Water Development Board. They have to approve whether the change can be made to the existing plan. If they approve it, it comes back to Region H, will countersign, and then the city can go through the process. But I think it's insightful that more and more communities are looking at SWIFT funds and looking at trying to improve capacity for both existing demands and future demands. Region H Legislative Committee is underway. We're working on various proposals for the legislature that will start in January. What you'll have is our full packet on the G Drive. And in that packet, you'll see some of the legislative items that the Region H is putting together to present to our legislatures to be considered in the 89th session. And the session will start on January 14th and run through June 2nd, provided they're not called back for any special sessions. Region H 2631 plan is on track. March of 25, we have to have our initial draft finalized and presented to the Texas Water Development Board. And then the final plan has to be presented by October of 25 to the Texas Water Development Board. And our next meeting is scheduled for October the 2nd of 24. Any questions?
Question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Hold on. Does Region H have a policy or means of helping utilities replace or repair their water distribution systems to minimize water loss?
We don't have any programs underway. We do add in our plan about water loss. We talked about water loss as being a targeted goal in any plan. We're seeing more communities work on water loss. I think our community overall has a very low, with the new meters and the way we handle things here, we have a low water loss rate.
Well, speaking of the
Right.
whole region, is there a way of assisting utilities? Is there any consideration of that in your planning?
I'll find out and let you know.
Okay, thank you, sir.
That's it, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate the
Appreciate
update.
it.
Okay, we now move to the consent agenda, items 5 and 6. Review the minutes and the financial disbursements.
I've got a couple of changes on, one change on the minutes.
Yes, sir.
On page 3.
Sure.
There's a third line says trustee Maggard would like to know how many municipalities have built a new WRF. And I didn't ask that. I wanted to know how many, and you could just eliminate built and put replaced an existing WRF with a new WRF. In other words, I want to know if there's anybody we can to Southeast Texas or South Texas, but we got a lot of consultants and probably the TECQ has got a record. But that was the question I asked, is if the River Authority, once we get this, if they can provide is an example of another community that had municipality, whether it's a MUD or a city. And that's just changing the minutes. That's what I put in. That was the
Replaced
question. I had.
or, say again,
You
please.
can eliminate the built
right?
and replace an existing WRF with a new WRF. In other words, has anybody ever junked one and built a new one?
Okay.
And then I got another one, unless somebody else has got an agenda item.
I've got an agenda item correction. I was not at the July meeting. Emily Britt was for MUD 7. So. And there's a reference to Emily being in the meeting.
As far as you were here, right?
It must have been that wig Emily wore.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Any other changes? Trustee
And
Maggard,
then
you
I've
had another?
got a question on the financial reports. Just a question. There's 3 checks that went out to something called Alpha Graphics Woodlands. And there was 10,889, and then there was
Sir, excuse me, what page are you on?
12 and 13. These are
Mhm.
basically the check register.
Mhm.
Anyway, there's a payment to Alpha Graphics of 10,889. This third from the top. And down here, there's another payment of 45,952. And then there's another payment on page 13 of 23,014. That's $80,000. And I just like to know what that is.
Graphics is our bill print, water sewer bills. They also do the consumer confidence reports every July and various other prints that we do.
Isn't postage also included in that?
Absolutely. Yeah, we
Yeah.
pay them for the postage. They use their license. So that's about 11,000 every month.
Well, I haven't been there a long time. I mean, is that common or uncommon?
For July, it's common because of the CCRs, yeah,
Okay,
because they produce them.
so what's the normal payment?
About 12,000 for postage, about 8 or so for the printing, mailing and stuffing, or printing the bills and stuffing them,
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
print services.
so normally it's 20,000 or something.
You're absolutely right, trustee. Okay, if there are no further questions or needs for amendment, we'll receive a motion and a second.
Subject to all the changes that have been identified, I move that we accept the remainder of the pages number 5 and 6 as presented.
We have a motion to approve with modifications. We have a second.
I'll second it.
We have did you get that? That's trustee Lashevsky. Motion by trustee Martin and a second by trustee Lashevsky. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion passes. Okay, agenda item number 7, review the Woodlands draft of the Woodlands Water fiscal year 2025 operating and capital budgets. Trustee Peterson?
Should have 2 documents. One is the draft budget summary memo, and one is the draft budget itself with the colors on it. For those trustees that are new, I just wanted to take a moment just to kind of explain what the process is. So tonight will be the kind of like you've seen with the SDRA budgets. You have an initial presentation tonight. There's no vote tonight. Ask questions, etc. And then we'll be looking for an approval next month at the September meeting. So that's the first step. Wanted to also kind of, for those that haven't seen this document before, and I will say that this memo follows the entire document kind of in order. So if you want to kind of dig into, any of the headers on each of these pages, they're kind of generally summarized in the memo. And if there's anything specific to pull out, then we note it, if there's any outliers. So just to kind of give you a summary of the first page here, which has several different colors on it. This is the revenue side, the income side for WWA to do the work, generally speaking. We receive fees from the MUDs to manage all of the work. That's up kind of in the top part. And then everything that you see in the brown or the orange section is a pass-through, what we call it, from the MUD. So next week, when we present the MUD budgets, if you accumulated all the work that goes on in all the MUDs, that's going to be passed through in this section here. So that's not WWA specific, that's MUD specific. And so what I wanted to do before we leave page 1 was just to talk briefly about a couple pretty large outliers that I wanted to discuss with you. The first being GL code 4331. This is water service maintenance. So also to kind of give you some bearings, if you look over at the 4th from the right column, that's this current year's budget. So that's what we're in right now. The blue is what we're projecting, and keep in mind we're missing 3 months. We have July and 2 months, August and September. So next month we'll at least have less projection and more actual. But that's what we're projecting, at least at this point. And then continuing to move left, you'll see a budget to budget variance. So there's a percentage. We pulled out kind of the bigger ones or the summary ones. And then further to the left is the proposed budget for this year. So what we usually do is we compare budget this year versus next year, and then identify, we take into consideration, the projected, if there's any anything that caused some weirdness or some differences, we take that into consideration as we're developing next year's budget. So to kind of go into that line item in particular, 4331, you can see that it's a significant increase. And I wanted to explain what that was. We are, and this is through the MUDs. There is, when you did the conversion to the AMI meters.
Was there one of those? Excuse me.
Yes.
I've got some. No, this-
Get rid of that.
Yeah, it is 2 pages. So
Okay.
Oh, there's 2 pages.
yeah, make sure you got 2 pages there.
Oh, those are back in front.
Back in the front and a back in the front. Well, 4 total pages. Yeah, 4 total sheets.
Okay, now this makes sense.
Good.
I was looking for the 4,000s and I couldn't find
4331.
Yeah, okay.
So when the Woodlands converted the AMI meters to get to the smart meter system that you have in place today, decision was made back then, partly because the manufacturer wasn't making the large diameter meters at that time, to just do the smaller diameter residential meters and the smaller diameter meters across the Woodlands. And so this is so they now make the larger diameter meters, number one, and the older meters that are old mechanical compound meters, the parts for us to work on them, repair them, are becoming obsolete because they're not making those meters anymore, the ones that are in the ground. And so this proposal would be for next year's budget, to identify the 3-inch and 4-inch compound meters and convert those to ultrasonic meters like you have in the rest of the residential section. One of the things that kind of helped us with this as well, in addition to having some issues, we believe starting to have issues in repairing these meters, is you'll recall last year we hired an outside firm to audit the system to identify if there was any losses in term, not water losses in terms of leaks, but in terms of bad meters, bad bill entries, meaning we're billing them the wrong number, for instance, or just things like that, whether it's computer or whether it's mechanical or physical situations in the field. And they found some stuff, and we're going to be giving you a summary of that probably at the MUDs next month. And the majority of the things they're finding are these old mechanical compound meters that are not reading. They have 2 sides, a low flow and a high flow side to them logistically, and one or both of those sides of the meter are the things that they're finding that are broken, and basically either low reading or no reading on either side of that compound meter. So long story short is this would switch out 207 3-inch and 4-inch meters across all of the MUDs, and with, I think, Metro being the largest provider of that, and they have about 100 of those. So all the rest of the MUDs are in the 10, 15 meter range. So the numbers are, I think, I want to say the Metro number was in the 500,000 or 600,000 of that. So the rest of the MUDs are a lot lower. But that's what that is. And over the next few years, just to kind of give you some foresight into what we're going to be looking at as well, is we'll start looking at the 6-inch and then the 8-inch, and we got the numbers go down in terms of the amount of those, but the price of those goes up per. So we'll look at that in future years' budgets, and we'll also assess that based on the operability of those meters, if we can still find parts, etc. If they're still operating, we can, we'll keep them, but that's what we'll probably be looking at in the next few years. Another kind of bigger outlier, but it's on the negative side in dropping in budget, is 4335. Last year we did year 1 or phase 1 of the sanitary sewer rehabilitation. That's where they go in and rehab sewer pipe and sewer manholes, things like that. And that project actually is just recently completed. So the whole project in itself was 3 phases. And so the budget here will be to push through phase 2 construction and then design of phase 3. And that's what we would try to do next year. And so that's what that number is. So it went down, but there's still work to be done.
Hey, Eric, sorry, on that one item, sanitary sewer repair, right? That's what you're doing, 4335. Not the same as the write-up that says sanitary sewer repair. I assume it's the same one. Can you square the 2.9 million in the budget, the new budget versus the list of items in that write-up? So some of those things in the write-up is like 2.6. Is there another 300,000 or so that's just not there, or am I not looking at this right?
May not have included every single thing to add up to the total.
Okay.
We'll fix that for next month.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, it was pretty.
Yeah, that's not just that project, by the way. There's other things that we have in there for sewer repairs.
Highlighted the
But
project.
that's the bigger piece of the number, is that project.
Well, it lists a bunch of ones here,
Right.
the deep water repairs, deep repairs, carryover from last year, phase 2 repairs, phase 3 repairs. That write-up in the sum of all this, yeah. It's pretty detailed with some small items. I thought that was, you're saying there's another 300 or so that's just not in that write-up. Okay, just want to make sure.
And so that's going up compared to previous years.
No, it's going down.
It's going down. Okay, 4, I was looking at the 2023, went up from 2023 to 2024.
Oh, yeah, because there was an actual project. Yeah, in previous years, they did the analysis. So there was smoke testing, cleaning, televising of the lines to analyze the lines and look at them. And that process was done over the last few years. And then it was identified to be broken up into 3 phases of construction. Year 1, year 2, year 3.
Eric, if I could comment, I mean, one of the things you gotta be careful of is if you compare year-end projection versus the budget. So it went down from 4.1 to 2.9, almost 3 on the budget basis. But the actual spend for the current year is 1.8.
Yeah,
Right.
because year 2 was budgeted last year to be done this year. And because year 1 or phase 1 didn't get done, it was pushed to this year's budget. So that's why the spend is different between the two.
So from a cash flow, we'll be spending more money this year than we did last year.
Your budget was 4 million and then 1.6.
Right,
It
and
dropped
the
because-
portion that we didn't spend is in this year's,
Right.
right, we pushed it.
Just
forward.
rolled over, basically.
Right, we didn't spend, that's right. All right, the next line item is 4365. And in addition to our normal budgeting, what we did was, I've indicated to the boards that that we've had some failures of backslip interceptor piping and piping that's going into ditches. And last year, or this current year, over the last few years, we've had several failures where we've had to go in and fix sinkholes and fix the backslip interceptor piping. Our ditch maintenance contractor is going through a complete audit of every ditch that is under WWA right now. And so hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll have a full audit of what pipes we have, what condition they are, the condition of the ditch as well, the ditches. And that will give us a better line of sight to building a capital improvement plan where we will build a little bit, probably more robust a capital or asset plan for all of the liabilities that we have in terms of like how many pipes. But for now, what we've done is we put in one major failure in each district as an area out of 25,000. That's the jump from the regular maintenance that we normally do to that number.
And how did you categorize that $100, 50,000 or
25.
25?
Yeah, 25 each district. So $250,000 added. And the issue is much greater than that, and it's likely that there hopefully be some districts that don't have to spend that. But we had 3 or 4.
We had mid-40s.
Well, yours was a big one. Yeah, 46 had a really big one that had pulled down fence with it, and it was a mess. There's slope paving on the top of it. It just was an expensive one. What I want to get to with all the muds is build a capital improvement plan that identifies those sooner, and we get them when they're 18 to 20,000, instead of letting them get to the situation where that one got to, where it was basically a catastrophic failure and pulled the neighbor's fence down, and it was all the news and all that. So, but that also means that we can't only, if that's the case, if a district is able to, are not going to be able to do it one by one. There's a benefit of doing probably a grouping of them. We might look at maybe doing something where once we have the audit and we have we identify the numbers that we're playing with as far as how many pipe. What we'll probably do that I'm expecting is we'll maybe do a 5-year turnaround where we'll do enough each year to have a full replacement in 5 years, maybe 7 years. So we'll look at that. We'll do the worst ones first in terms of condition based to see which, because ultimately, I think we've talked about this before, is the pipe that we're talking about is corrugated metal pipe that after 20, 30 years, it disintegrates. And it's usually in a ditch system where there's water flowing through it. So we want to really catch those before they become big sinkholes. And a lot of these are up against proper house backyards. Oh, not all of them, but some of them are. So we want to get them before they encroach into fences and backyards.
That's kind of like the one we had up at Westwood.
That was one. Yeah.
We had a great delay. It's just politically, big thing to a lot of people.
That's right. Yeah, 136 had one, 46 had two. I think last year 47, I think had one. So it's been, I expect there's gonna be more, but I want to get out ahead of this best we can. Talked a little bit about, let's see what else. That was really on the front page, the majority of the items on and again, that's the revenue side. So it's just, I know we talked as if they're expenses, but that's the revenue.
Mud expenses.
That's right. It's the mud expenses, right? So on page 2 are the actual expenses. And so a lot of what we just talked about are within that bottom orange part as an expense. But to go up to the top, some of the things that are WWA expense related things, employee salaries, we have a proposed decrease in overall salaries. We eliminated a couple positions, and so we're a couple full-time positions. So that's going to go down a little bit. Part-time salaries is going to go up just slightly, and that is my proposal is to hire a part-time individual to assist John with communications efforts. And we don't have anyone in mind at the moment, but we have some. We know what our limitations are in terms of graphics design and some of those things, and so we would be possibly looking at finding someone.
Is John full-time or part-time?
He's part-time.
He's part-time too.
So we do some in-house sharing with some folks. You've met Tori. She helps John a little bit, but she also helps on the financial side too. So yeah. The next.
Hey, Eric, we
Yeah,
go on there,
sure.
you know, with your internet replacement of Mike Mooney. Did you want to put anything in there for, say, like a sign-on bonus for somebody? To help entice the hires one?
Yes, that includes a little bit of that. So I'll get to that in a little bit.
Okay, I didn't know if that was then listed under the employee expenses. That you
It's in there.
It is in there.
Insured plans, that's our insurance. That's going up a little bit. As you know, we're self-insured, so we pay the claims, and then we have stop loss up to a certain point, insurance over that. And so we're putting in, that's a dart every year. It's a guess, but sometimes we hit under and sometimes it's over because we just don't know how much that's going to end up being. The premiums really didn't go up that much, maybe a little bit of that, but we're just projecting that that we want to try to cover our expenses there best we can.
You have a plan administrator for that so that you don't give to bills?
Yes. Third-party administrator manages it, and we have a partner network for providers. Next kind of bigger item going down, 7,200 consultant fees. That's going down 50%. We had some consultant fees there for, let's see, what was it? The what? That's right. We had some in there for, if you recall, last year, we put some monies in as a kind of a placeholder to possibly look at doing some repositioning of walls and creating some efficiencies in this building. And we kind of cut that out. And then we also had the rate study done last year. That was another consultant. And then we have, I think this year, there's some spend on the software to do data migration, which I reported to you 3 months ago, I think. So that was in there as a actual. Next down, water taps and service. That's hot. That's up too. But that is the materials for the number you saw on the front of the page.
So shouldn't that be in brown as well?
Probably good. Yeah. So, yeah, if you add up, yeah, that's fine. So that's the material. Below it is kind of the outside services to construct it, and that's the two expenses that go into the front side. So that was a change. Let's see. I think we've covered everything in the we've already talked about as a revenue. There's the coinciding expense on the backside with the addition of the material expenses and then 10% to cover the management of those. That's how you get to the front side. If you turn to the third page, that's just really the kind of the office expenses, supplies, our public outreach, software, insurance, things like that. Not any real heavy movers. The only kind of the big add would be to, so last year we put in funds for trying to fix the roof and do some improvements on the building, and then the architect that I just mentioned. So this year I've got 100 in there. We didn't end up spending 50 of last year, so I put 100 in this year. We're looking at refreshing the building with paint, doing some technology improvements, TVs in this room, TV on the outside face, so that when we get busy or too full in this room, that everybody in the hallway can hear and see what's going on. We looked at possibly moving these walls back and trying to create space within, and it's not something we want to do cost wise. So we felt like providing at least that information through that screen to the public that wants to hear it out in the hall, at least will be a better option for us financially. Looking at doing some paint and improving the look and feel of the area, not only the public areas, but also the office space areas with paint. Right now, we're not proposing to heavy remodeling of bathrooms and things, but if we do have some money left over, we may look at changing fixtures. We got 1983 fixtures in this building, high flow toilets and sinks, et cetera. So I'd like for us to be more representative of modern day water usage as a water agency. So I'd like to get that done too, but to do heavy remodel of those bathrooms would be 20,000-30,000 each. And we don't have money for that, or I'm not proposing to do that. So I'm just proposing to kind of make some clean improvements to the look and feel, and then modernize some things with some TVs and technology, We added that other microphone last month. We'll probably put in a projector so that we can get rid of this and make it a little bit more efficient. We are looking at putting in a customer interface kiosk in the lobby that will allow customers, instead of grabbing the paper and filling everything out, and then we enter it, to them actually being able to enter in their information for their accounts. A lot of times people come in that, they may be elderly or just are not computer savvy, and they really struggle trying to sign up for things like WaterSmart and stuff like that. So we want to try to create an opportunity for them to do that. We can come out and help them, enter their stuff into because what we want to stay away from is capturing any of their payment data. We don't want to be involved in that. So we can't do it for them, but we can help them get there. And so that'll be a better option for us. And then we have some thoughts about maybe creating in the lobby kind of a community education section or area in the front left where the previous GMs are on the wall, kind of taking that stuff down and possibly creating kind of an educational section for the customers to come in and learn about things that are going on, water conservation, things like that, from on our public outreach stuff. So all of those things, we are looking at also putting in a rain barrel, a harvesting barrel in the front right on the outside of the building. We're looking at signage. Our address is not actually even on this building. So we'd like to put our address on it, put our logo on it, change the signs. There's a sign out on Lake Robbins. There's a sign out on Grogan's. So we'd like to put, Woodlands Water Agency signs out there so people, people know where we are, but when they turn that corner, some people are a little confused at what is this it or not? Because our sign's nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of those different. I know I spoke fast on all that, but there's a lot that is in that number, and we're going to try to get as much of it done as we can going forward. I think I mentioned that we did finally fix the leak, and we got the roof fixed. We got a gutter up there, and we went through the hurricane and that Tuesday flood, although this area of the Woodlands didn't get as much as the conference area, but nonetheless, we got a good bit of rain. So it's been tested a few times with some wind and rain storms, and we've held up pretty well. So that was the main thing that we needed to do before we could do sheetrock and painting.
Replace some tiles.
And we're replacing some tiles. Yep, I didn't mention that, but that's all I'm gonna say. It's gonna be too expensive to do all of them. We can't match the exact ones, but what we've talked about is any of the stained ones we're gonna replace. Yeah, of course. There's a lot more than that, than just these.
Yeah, sure.
What about is there the option of moving off the table?
No, but it's not near term. It's not near term at this point. I think there will likely be an opportunity in the future for that will probably happen at some point, but I don't believe that it will happen in the next 5 years. But that is on
Shopping centers that would be, available that you well received by the owners.
Yeah, we've been in contact with the township and Howard Hughes on just kind of what's going on with some of these properties. And right now it will likely make more sense in the future that this 0.87 acres ends up being incorporated into either what happens right here or what happens in those woods right there, which is Howard Hughes and the township. So we'll see. Because there's not much that really can be done with this property unless it's added to something else. So that's what I would expect someone will probably want to do. But now's not the time.
We have only 0.87 acres.
That's what this property sits on, yes. So, to build anything on here, we barely have enough parking. You'd need to go up. If you went up, you'd have to, I don't know, limited.
You had mentioned before that you were going to try to work on improving the audio on the tapes. Has that been accomplished?
Yeah, that's what I just
Mic over there.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that. Oh, okay.
We added, so the issue was people that made a presentation right here couldn't be heard by that. So last month that finally came in.
Right.
And finally, last page, with not a whole lot of information on here that's worth talking about, I guess, other than those numbers at the bottom of the page. The significance of those is that Woodlands Water Agency has a resolution with MUDs that our goal is to have a reserve of no less than 1 month and no more than 2 months. And that's not per month, that's identified after the audit's done. And so once the audit's done, we look at that, and if we fall below 1, then we could theoretically have a cash call. If we have over 2, then we would refund that. So we're budgeting for 1. We usually come in over the budget in terms of having excess. We don't usually overspend, and the revenues usually cover because we're fairly conservative on our budget. So we are budgeting that for the one in the year. And that's a quick summary of all of the budget. The admin fee would be to cover all of these items would be $722 for the MUDs, or for the residential MUDs, and then $1544 for the metro MUD. And that's what generates the expense or the revenue to cover.
That's $722
Per connection.
per connection.
Per connection. So it's
Per year.
yeah. So no action tonight. Mull it over. If you have any questions, let me know. Now, what will happen, as we mentioned, because this tan area is mud related, the MUDs, all of y'all are going to see the MUD budgets next week. And any changes that happen there could likely have an effect on this, obviously, because some of this passed through. But we'll work through that. And then next month at the trustee meeting, we'll ask for approval. And what we'll do is give you an updated version. It'll have August financials in it, and then it'll also incorporate any MUD changes that happen next week. Is that good?
I think it's a good budget. I think you come through all that and you're less than 2% year over year. That's hard to do in this environment. I think it's well done.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Agenda item 8, receive a regular monthly SJRA Woodlands Division report, including updates on operations, projects, and public outreach. Mr. Meeks, I saw he left a moment ago. Thank you, Jeannie. Hello, Mr. Meeks. Good evening.
Make a grand entrance.
You did.
Nothing really to update tonight. I guess one item to update is as you're going through this month's report as well as next week's report that you're going to get, the financials are still not available to y'all nor us as well. So what is occurring is when everything was done in the test server and the test environment, we had to connect the old system to the new system as well as all the subsequent systems. And so when they took it, and it worked great, but when they took it from the test environment and they put it into production and then reconnected everything, it had a lot of misfires and glitches. Everybody here knows software works one day, the next day it doesn't. So they're going through the glitches and fixing the various glitches as they go through. A lot of the invoices and payments are going through. But right now the reports have not gone through. I did have a meeting tomorrow with accounting to go through what's occurring and, if we're back on schedule. But that meeting was canceled earlier, so that does not leave a good taste in my mouth. So all that to be said is if you're going through the projects in the monthly operations report, you'll see one that's been highlighted this month in yellow. That is one project I asked if they could go through and kind of do it manually just to tell me how long it takes to update this data manually, because it can't be done manually. Well, it took about 2 to 3 hours to get that data, and the report is incorrect. So I'm asking them to redo it, and then next week that number should be up to date. However, if you go through all the projects we have, all the financials we have, you can only imagine how long that would take to manually update everything. So,
So what you're saying, update the budget column, contract amount, those are all.
so
May not be
the
accurate.
budget, the contract should be correct. The invoice to date is the one that I'm mostly concerned about.
That was troubling.
Yeah, we,
If it's done,
what's that?
if it's done.
That project is done.
Yeah.
It's actually the one that you went to go see that one
Yeah,
time. So it's done, but it was not $6,000.
Right.
I think it's about 135,000 or so. There's actually 3 or 4 projects that have been completed on there, but since we don't have updated financials to show you what the actual was versus budget, we're not highlighting.
Chris, are you getting the months closed out, but they're just on time for these meetings? Or are you actually 2 months behind, going to 3 months behind? Just
So they're
Right.
closing the month. We're just not able to get the reports out of the system to show what the revenue, what actually occurred in that month.
in
Is what I've
time
been
for
told.
these meetings,
In time for any
for
meeting.
any meeting, okay?
Correct, including our board
So you can't generate it at all.
at all.
Got it.
But they can generate a report, but it's not accurate. Because they'll tell me, they'll watch and they'll say, no, we can print the report. It's just not accurate. So they can print the report, but it's not to be trusted. Just that.
Can't produce an accurate report.
There you go.
Okay,
So
okay.
you have a couple of items
Sure.
that are supposed to be completed into August.
Okay.
Are they like, just a yes or no? Are they gonna be, lift station? Completion August,
Was it lift station rehab?
Edgeworth?
So lift station rehab is a reoccurring project. All the projects we had planned have been completed or will be in the next week or two. Lift station number 6, which I believe is under your maintenance schedule, you'll see we're putting in the panels on the catwalk at this time. Last thing we had to do, one of the last things was last week, we had SCADA go in and hook up their stuff. Headworks project, yes, I got substantial completion. However, you're gonna see them still on there because we could not actually show the final amount. So that project did reach final, substantial then final, as well as punch list
But
items.
the digital water,
Digital water is completed for phase 2, last week, I think it was, maybe 2 weeks ago.
I have one unrelated question in it,
Sure.
since Ed's not here, but the quad vest suit, is that still, no opinion?
That's the federal one, right?
Well,
No opinion.
no opinion after 6 months.
No opinion. Anything else?
Yes, elevated storage tank number 6 is in design to be completed in January.
Yeah.
Is there, looking forward to 2025 and beyond, for the construction phase? That's R&R, is sort of in the pipeline, ready to go.
Correct, that's all.
Once the design is complete.
Correct.
Yeah.
Once it's done, that project may slip another 3 to 4 months or so, making sure that the water capacities that we use are accurate, so we don't oversize it.
Mhm.
The budget's for a 1 million gallon tank, but we're estimating it's gonna be at least 500,000 up to 750. Just as an FYI, so we wanna fine tune that, don't build something too big. But that is R&R funded, and we are also using the rest of the funds from future facilities to fund that.
Yeah, the reason I ask is that that will be an item in communications going forward.
Correct.
So as we look at I hate to use the term smaller projects because it's a big project, but
Right.
ongoing upgrades and replacement, it's going to be an important part of what we're communicating to the folks in the Woodlands.
Great, because that, like you said, heavily visible.
Yeah, exactly. Above ground. Yeah.
Above ground,
Yeah.
100 foot in the air, edge of the woodlands.
Right.
People will see it.
Some people expressed interest in a wastewater treatment 2 plant tour.
Okay,
And maybe in September before it gets too cold or cools off.
no problem. Y'all can just coordinate with Shelley.
You want to do
What's that?
it before it?
Yeah, well, what doesn't never gets cooled here, but what I'm saying, after it cools down
Oh,
a little
after,
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's September, maybe we can.
Not a problem. We can do plant 2, plant 3, whatever. Y'all
Thinking.
can just let Eric know.
November.
I was thinking September.
We have a GRP tour coming.
Yeah.
We do.
August 27th, maybe?
Yeah, let's, why don't I send out some dates and we'll shoot for, late September, early October,
Okay.
all the holidays hit. For the GRP tour up at the lake, that's what he's talking about. It's late on.
27th or something. It's not next week.
Tuesday. Would like to go, we can just send that to you. Okay.
It's in the morning, I think 8 or 8:30.
Yeah, early. Some of it's inside, some of it's outside.
Yeah, I've been before. You go to the dam?
No, you go to 11998 Line Valley Drive.
Could you include that address?
We will. That's good.
I remember
Yeah,
the first time I
it's
went
not
in,
the
the GPS took me some wild location.
Yeah.
Although I could see the dam, but I couldn't get to it.
And if they let you drive across the dam, it's only like 90 seconds, but
Yeah.
if you drive around, it's about 17 minutes.
Well, they got speed limits now, so it's.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll get that.
Yeah.
It's up off the Longmire and
Yeah, yeah, as long, I went back that way. I forget how I got there.
we'll send that.
Other questions, thought? Thank you.
Okay, we have agenda item 9, consider an act on the SJRA Woodlands Division fiscal year 2025 operating budget, including wholesale water and sewer rates. We discussed this last month. Is there some paperwork on this?
I'll take that.
Okay.
Just as a reminder, this was presented by Sandy Central River Authority in May and had several discussions in ensuing months. No changes have been made, but just so we all are talking about the same numbers, the wholesale water rate proposed is $2.73, which is a 2% reduction from the prior year. And the wastewater rate is $5.65 wholesale water rate, and that's flat, same as the prior year. And secondly, the GRP rate, let's see, the groundwater rate went from $2.99 to proposal for the next year to $2.67. And then the surface water from $3.41 to $3.26. And finally, the number that all the customers are going to see, it's the GRP blended rate for the Woodlands. And since we are 50-50 surface water and groundwater, that rate is $2.97, and that represents a 7.2% reduction from the prior year.
Down from 320.
Down from 320, correct. So that's what the customers are going to see.
What was the wholesale sewer rate again?
Sewer is $5.65.
And what was it before?
It's flat, $5.65.
Yeah.
What was the 273 number?
That's the wholesale water rate, and it was $2.78. 2% reduction. So that's what we're proving, or voting on.
So I really appreciate you sharing those numbers. But as I've expressed in the past, anytime we vote on something, it would be nice if we could see in writing what we were voting on. Rather than just said, you saw the information 2 months ago. Okay. And it should be included in the minutes with what we vote. Okay.
Didn't each MUD have a vote on this last time to tell how their
They did,
trustee how to vote? Okay, so
but it's not, it's not in this package. And it's not in the minutes for this meeting.
it won't be in the minutes till the meeting's over.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hesitant to vote on things that aren't in writing. Okay. So maybe I'm 1 out of 10 that feels that way. That's fine. But I think the information he shared should be in writing. It should be part of the package.
SJRA.
We can put it in the,
Yeah,
they can put it in the minutes for the next meeting. And then we have to approve the minutes, so put all the numbers in the minutes that Paul spelled out. They'll be in the minutes that we approve next meeting. But
Yeah,
I agree with you.
and it was presented in May, so what we could do is, I know a copy was given to you then and at the MUDs last month, but what we could do is just dig that up and recopy it to the August meetings if you want. And if there's, and SJRA can advise us if there's been any changes since then. And we
Yeah,
can just
what-
recopy it.
In prior years, what SJRA is committed to do is if there's a change to what they previously presented, to re-present that. But I think if there hasn't been a change from what was originally presented, and then that's discussed and voted on by the MUDs to direct the trustee it wasn't necessary to include a copy of what had previously been presented and discussed and approved by the MUDs for the next trustee packet. But
I
I just think it's a
if you
heavy
have
lift to do it.
a standalone meeting, it'd be nice to have a package that actually has the numbers in
Yeah.
it.
I mean, it's not a heavy lift to put.
No,
that in.
it's simple.
You made a good point, Brad.
May was
Will be
a
so.
turnover for all the boards. too.
Just to confirm what Ron said, though, it was presented at the at the meetings and
Sure.
the individual boards directed their trustees.
No
Your
exception.
point's well taken.
Yes.
And I'm sure that in the future that it will be done as you request. But I just want to make sure that what Ron said was accurate.
Yes,
That
yes.
Each trustee had been or has been advised as to how that board wanted to vote on this matter.
Totally agree.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so
Call question.
we had a, yeah, we don't need a motion because it was approved by the ad hoc committee, audit and finance. And do we have a second on that?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay. Attorney's report, agenda item 10.
Separate legal items this evening.
Thank you, sir. Discuss the One Water Task Force leadership funding, agenda item 11. General Manager Peterson.
I believe that was requested by Walt last month to be put on the agenda this month to discuss.
You know, we started the One Water Task Force up again. It's a program that was started.
Who is we?
Excuse me,
You said we started it up. Who is we? Kind of tell everybody what.
the Woodlands Water, along with
Okay. It wasn't the town, because the township started it the first time.
well, I was going to get to that.
Okay.
If you want to go ahead and
No.
describe it, you can.
No, I was just trying to say, because I'm not clear myself who we was.
The original task force started back when Mike Bass was on the board and Ed Robb, and basically started when the Del Webb construction was going on, and there was flooding areas up there. And I think it was determined then that, you know, they did a pretty good job on drainage with inside the woodlands, but it's areas outside the woodlands that could end up affecting us. And so the task force was started. It grew to a very large task force that had agencies from Houston, from the county, from various flood control districts. It got quite large. But there were really no teeth behind it, and there was no money. There was no funding. There wasn't really leadership there. And so it ended up dying, I guess you would say. And there was an interest of resurfacing again to see what we could do, because there are still areas that even though they haven't flooded since Harvey, still stand a very good chance of being flooded. Creekside Park, Rogan's Point. There's still a lot of areas there that could end up getting flooded. So there was an interest from the township to restart the program again. The conversations have been held with them. And so right now, Eric is on it, Mike Mooney's on it, Bob Lilac, myself, Neil Gaynor, Bob Lux, Cindy Heister, one of the board members, Todd Stevens, and what's her last name? But
Ambio.
Carmen Cambio.
Karen Cambia with Congressman Crenshaw's office. But it's a program that if we're going to do it, it needs a leader, and it needs some funding. And I guess the question being is, how are we going to fund it? And I guess all the MUDs would have to fund it if we wanted to. And I think we can get some money from the township, even though they say they can't do anything and they're not responsible for flooding. They are very concerned about it. But the enabling agreement that they do have in place does allow them to go ahead and participate in items that are beneficial to the community. And of course, this is one bit. And
You say do what does do what means? You said do what? I don't know what is. I mean, I know that I've heard the word, one water, I've heard it. And I've had a little bit here and there, but really, I don't know if everybody here understands what's going on and what's the purpose of the group. And I remember watching a video of your mud, and I guess you guys voted to give him $10,000. I think. Memory serves me right.
that 10,000 was in correlation with other muds for this Spring Creek study.
I could have, I was listening to tape.
It was the Spring Creek study. In fact, even the city of Humboldt gave $50,000 for this study.
Oh, but I thought you get that like 3 months ago. I mean, I know I did participate in all the meetings of Spring Creek, so I'm familiar with that.
There's been no board.
We gave 50,000, I think, but it was
related to one
before I got there, but.
Well, the problem is also it's people, there are some people that will tell you that flooding is not an issue here. And yet there are some people that would tell you, I mean, flooding is not regional. And I mean, it's not localized. I mean, it's a regional issue. And there's been conversations with the Houston Flood Control District, who's been doing it for our Harris County Flood Control District. They've been doing it since 1937, and they're a taxing entity, and they do a lot of projects. I mean, they where we don't have anything like that. There's nothing in Montgomery County that has the central location that is responsible for flooding. And it's one of those things. If it's not happening now, then it gets put on the back burner. And so what we're trying to do is rejuvenize it and get it working again so that we can make a difference on the flooding issue, because there's nothing that's going to help those people down in Creekside Park or those people in Grogan's Point if we have another Harvey, because the issues are still there. Nothing's happened.
So my county commissioner has been actively working on flood mitigation for East County, and I'm just curious, how is there any overlap in the flooding issues and flood mitigation between the county commissioners and what you're talking about?
Yeah, there could be. The original look at water years ago was multi-jurisdiction across multiple counties. Waller, Montgomery, Harris County. And so all those individuals were in the room. What was made clear to me as the idea of this was coming about to kind of rejuvenate this group was that we really need to learn from what happened the first time, which was it kind of died off. There was 30 or 40 people in the room. Some were engaged in that particular subject, some weren't, and nothing really got done. I mean, that's what's been described to me. So my intention when we started kind of talking about this again was that, number one, we would identify, I don't believe it's just a flooding discussion. I think there's other things that the group could accomplish. I'm concerned about our water source in the county, quite frankly, with what Lone Star's regulations are or aren't right now, how much water we have available in the lake, surface water, et cetera. I mean, you look at the wells. So I think water is a key thing. Folks ask about subsidence and then flooding, and that some of that ties in each other. So we kind of identified that those were maybe some of the topic parameters of water source, subsidence, and flooding. That was it. We identified that we would invite individuals, stakeholders that could assist with whatever the goal or the immediate topic was, not generalize these big goals, but really dig into a specific target. And the first specific target that came about was the Bear Panther drainage analysis. And so as MUD 67 took the lead on it, there's 6 stakeholders in the project. And it was an analysis that was created a couple of years ago to identify supporting the drainage for the Research Forest Corridor, Cochran's Crossing, around the high school, that whole area. The area that got hit hard 3 weeks ago, right on top of that area, that flooded pretty good. The streets flooded pretty good. This analysis was completed a couple months ago. It was presented to those stakeholders, or 6 MUDs, and it was identified that the original project goals of that study were to reduce the high surface water elevation during a certain flood event in the road right-of-ways and in that immediate area, specifically around Research Forest. And it was concluded that through the modeling, the stream modeling, that they could in fact get a reduction of about 2 feet or so in a tax day type flood. And so that was generally in the original idea of, or hope of that model when it was begun. Part of the downside, what was also presented, was that there was an updated cost estimate of that project, and I think the original number came about 3 or 4 years ago. The modern, or the new number after the modeling, had gone up, and I think the project would be about 6 or 8 million short. The MUDs acquired some funding. I think there's 11.3 million in funding that's available already. And so when that information came about, there was a discussion at the stakeholder MUDs of, what do we do from now? What do we do from here? It looks like we're a few million short. And what I suggested was maybe we could take that project back to One Water and see if there's some funding available, state or federal funding. And so we actually have a meeting scheduled to meet with Crenshaw and Toth here coming up soon, to just start talking about, is there any available funding? They've both indicated that they would try to help us. And that would be to focus on this specific project. So right now, that's all that's happening. That's the entire story. And then ultimately, some of those other things like water source and some of the other, Spring Creek is the other big drainage study that has been talked about. That more benefits Creekside, which isn't under the WWA umbrella, but it's still part of the Woodlands, obviously. And that is something that, we've heard about as far as, that particular study. So it's possible that too could, kind of jump back into that discussion, but that is going to be multi-jurisdictional and a very significant project, in the billions probably, construction wise. So we're trying to tackle at least this specific project at the moment that has been modeled, and we have some cost estimates to see if we can get some movement.
So Eric, and then, excuse me, then hopefully we can also go to the township board and see if we can get money from that.
What are you gonna do with the money?
Can I ask a question for, so the SJRA has a flood management division, right?
3 people. Yeah, it's small, looking for funds.
But they seem to have the jurisdictional kind of umbrella. Is this work kind of in conjunction with them? Is it underneath them? I mean, usually a task force is reporting to somebody who has authority to do something, right? They can actually enact some kind of process or action or appropriate funds or do something. And this sounds like more of kind of an advocacy group, or have a community based, versus somebody who has authority to actually do anything. I'm trying to,
Well,
why wouldn't SJRA do this? And
Because-
maybe they need 30 people. I don't know, but
SJ's involved, but the MUDs pay for it. So the MUDs have to be in the lead to try to find the funding for this.
okay.
Anything that SJA would do would still be funded by the MUDs.
The SGRA doesn't have a funding mechanism. So back when, the Spring Creek study was being looked at, my recollection was River Authority, whoever was handling it, the flood group at that time, who's since left, said, yeah, we've got the expertise, deal with different drainage basins, but we don't have a funding mechanism. We don't have a fee that's charged to different consumers or customers to be able to pay for work that would need to be done. And so I think, again, my recollection on the task force initially was you've got different entities that have patchwork responsibility. You don't have the overarching, which is, I think, what you're thinking about, an overarching report. You've got different patchworks of responsibility of the township. Within that, you've got MUDs, you've got the county, but they're not super involved in drainage, and you've got the river authority. So it was to try to come together and say, okay, well, we've got this problem that impacts multiple different entities that are doing this. When the question comes up, how can we coordinate to have the different patchwork regulatory entities participate in a solution? And maybe the solution involves different patchwork entities funding an overarching report, which could be the river authority, to perform a task with funds from the different participants. But that's been the struggle. There's not an overarching entity similar to when you mentioned Harris County and Harris County Flood Control District. But again, that entity has a property tax authority, and Montgomery County has been very resistant to a new taxing jurisdiction to impose a property tax.
The overriding goal to elect all those different entities to try to work together to get to the end. That's what the goal of the group altogether is to get all those pieces and get them in the same room.
So when it was operational before, did it make any progress on that front? Or I worry that it's just going to kind of hang out and do stuff.
What's the Spring Creek drainage study that identified the location of a potential reservoir? I know that was one deliverable, I think, that was produced.
I attended all three meetings, you were there, and, finally at the end, the river authority, got to the point where we were identifying, houses affected in each budget individually. And really, what you kind of discovered by that was probably 75% of the effect is outside of the Woodlands. And it would improve conditions on some houses, but not many.
And you're talking about Spring Creek.
Spring Creek, I'm just talking about Spring Creek. And so that's my comment about that. Now, the other one, Mud 40, I call it the Mud 47 project. 67, excuse me, 67. But what surprised me about this is that all the funding and discussions and costs occurred before I arrived 2 years ago. So all that, we contributed $600,000 or $700,000, it turns out, and it all occurred. The voting all occurred 2 years ago, and then there was silence. It was silence until about a month ago. And then we're beginning to get detail, which I'll be honest with you, I'm still coming up to speed on that detail. And it's, I'll be honest with you, it's sort of surprising that I don't know how much money was spent on this modeling. But there's been really what I call an insufficient review of the progress that was made. I got a map and a chart, and I kind of understand physically what's going on, but we need to have more transparency and more discussion on these topics. I mean, you guys went off and we started one water, and okay, I knew that it was previously exempted, but you guys are off running in meetings in which the public's not invited. And I think if you want to build support for it, we have to have more transparency of what's going on, just like
That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build support.
Beginning discussion, but we've been to every meeting and we listened and I learned a lot, and I don't see a way to fund that, $200 million per holding area. And we get in line. So we got out of that as we get in line for something that's unknown. And to be honest with you, on that study, by the time we get there, those developments are probably well on the way.
I think you've got two things confused.
Well, I'm talking about Spring Creek right now, Spring Creek. Now, Mud 67 project, I have a little peripheral knowledge now that recently, I picked up, but I really never, I don't understand where we're at. So we're gonna take that project and transfer it to, basically a non-existing entity right now that I think we need to understand, the mission statement.
Maybe this will help.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to share with you the mission statement. To support procurement of long-term sustainable water supplies. Collaborate on aquifer management to reduce subsidence and flood risk. to provide accurate information to the public through outreach, and to recommend and promote regional solutions that will support and improve the Woodlands and the surrounding areas.
I didn't say anything.
Does that help?
Flooding.
Pardon me?
I didn't say anything about flooding hardly, did it?
Well, flood risk, yeah. Management to reduce subsidence and flood risk.
I'd like to make a personal comment. I've been here almost 50 years. I came to the grand opening in 1974. And when I came here, you could go and stand at Grogan's Mill and Woodlands Parkway, and you could walk to Magnolia, and you might cross 2 or 3 roads, and you might run across 2 or 3 or 4 farms. So there was nothing down here, and you could go the other direction to Kingwood and probably basically say the same thing. 50 years, we built all these impermeable structures, roofs and driveways and roads and Lexus dealerships that took all the floodway out of there and put a dam right there at Spring Creek. And you know, the one thing that hasn't changed in 50 years, Spring Creek. Nothing's changed, and you're trying to dump all this extra water into Spring Creek, and it ain't gonna go. And the only way you're gonna solve that is you could clear out all the brush for about 40 miles and concrete line it, and everybody knows that's not gonna happen. All you gotta do is look at Buffalo Bayou down in Houston. You get all the powers that be, and the Corps of Engineers had tried a couple times, and it could look like Brays Bayou, and that would solve a lot of their problems. But as you know, with the environmental situation, nobody's going to touch the Spring Creek Greenway, and that's the solution. So you build all this impermeable infrastructure, and then everybody wants to look at Spring Creek and say, "Well, you got to do something." And I think Eric and I talking the other day, if I was buying anything on Spring Creek, the first thing I'd do when they surveyed my lot is I'd find out what the elevation of my slab was. And then I'd go check what the Harvey was at Kirkendall and Spring Creek, and I wouldn't touch it because the 100-year floodplain is no longer 100 years, it's 20. So everybody that thinks they're going to solve a flooding problem, all you're going to do is, we need some drainage work done in the Woodlands, but it's just going to speed up the water and get it into Spring Creek. And it's got no place to go. If, you know, I'm a strange guy, but I've actually walked that whole right of way up Panther Creek and all that brush and tangled up. And, you know, back to, as you know, you can correct me, Chris, but River Authority maintains the Bear Branch floodway and Panther Branch, right? They mow it. They have to mow, right? So you're actually the operator, and then you pass on the mowing costs because I remember what was an Ike that kind of several $1 million worth of trees that blew down in the Bear Branch, wasn't that right? It was a big number. Anyway.
I don't mean to interrupt, but are we on topic
No, but
with the agenda item?
the point is that, you know, back to, you create all these task force. And that's why I ask, what are you going to spend the money on? Because, you know, they talk about the Spring Creek flooding, and that problem's not going to be solved. It's just the smart people are not going to put property in the Spring Creek floodway. And I'm not going to pay for all the stupid people that put their property in there and then want me to fix it like it.
Anything else to add on the One Water Task Force? I don't know. Is there a consensus that we even proceed? Should that be a topic of discussion at a later date?
I think the question that was at hand was never brought to light. The question that brought this item up was whether or not there would be, the MUDs wanted to fund hiring an individual to spearhead it a little bit more than what I can or any of the other individuals can. That's what this is about. That never came out. And that, the answer may be no,
So
but
you said you need a leader in money.
correct.
Yeah.
But not the money, I don't think, to do a project. It was to, I think, find a leader and push it along.
We'll find a leader that, what's our path forward? You know, where are we really gonna try to go with this thing? I mean, we could not do anything and just wait for the next flood event to happen, and then everybody will get excited about it. You know, a couple of weeks ago, when we got, what, 6 inches in 2 hours, you know, everybody started going, whoa, you know, this could happen again. I mean, there was a lot of areas that, you know, see the tremendous amount of water that they never had, the streets being flooded. But what we're trying to do is try to figure out what's our next step to prevent something like that from happening. Because there's nobody taking responsibility.
Councilors. Go ahead,
I
Ron.
was going to ask, I could make a comment. I mean, I'm very supportive of addressing the flooding issue. I think this issue is much bigger than the Woodlands. And I think for Woodlands to take ownership over is a tough road to go. Okay, I think this is more of a county-wide issue or a regional-wide issue. Montgomery County, at the end of the day, they need to come to grips with the flooding problem they've got. Harris County addressed this with the flood control district. It wasn't something that the city of Houston did. Wasn't something the city of Spring did. It was a Harris County wide. I don't see where the Woodlands stepping forward is going to solve this problem. We don't have countywide support. I think
I think you're gonna see more countywide support because Harris County is putting pressure on Montgomery County. Because every time it floods up here, it floods them.
Sure.
And nothing's being done up here.
what I'm telling you though is the Woodlands isn't going to solve this problem without the countywide support.
By itself.
I mean, you know, the county has a development handbook. I forget what they exactly call it. It was revised probably 4 years ago. And I think the beginning of this rests with the county commissioners. You mean, and we have a new county commissioner coming into office in January. And I think we can talk with him. You know, I don't know what the other county commissioners, know, but I know the handbook that really is designed to prevent the future acceleration of this, more problems was done 3 or 4 years ago. And, who did it was Commissioner Riley. He led the effort. And maybe, we should, you get a small group, go talk to Riley, go talk to Waller, with Wheeler, and go forward. But I'm like Brad, I don't see how, these are pie in the sky
Well,
things.
I think perhaps we become, as we did with the previous One Water Task Force, too focused on flood risk. And, as Eric said, one of the things that keeps a lot of our professionals awake at night is long-term sustainable water supplies. You look at the well logs, you see what's going on. All that Houston has to do is claim their 66% of the water in Lake Conroe someday, and we're going to be scratching. So, I mean, yeah, flooding is there. It's the 500-pound elephant in the room, which we may not be able to do anything about, but we may be able to do something about long-term water supplies.
Well, again, though, I think the Woodlands doing that by themselves is not a feasible solution.
I mean,
It's a countywide problem.
I don't think we're trying to, that's not what the goal is.
That's what the purpose of the group is to bring.
I've always wanted to
everybody
call
else
it a
in.
coalition as opposed to a task force.
Yeah, there was discussion about renaming that because
Changes the visual of it.
this isn't a Woodlands thing.
Well, I didn't hear City of Conroe stepping up. I didn't hear the county commissioner stepping up. Where's the county judge? Okay, I mean, this looks like it's being driven by the township and WWA potentially. Okay,
I think this is a conversation that has to include the county commissioners. They should be the lead.
How do you get their attention? This question.
I know a lot.
I guess what we're trying to do though is I think I agree with Eric does and Bob's on it, we all agree that's what needs to happen and so forth. But what we're trying to do is figure out how do we at least get somebody to start leading this so that we can get this stuff that we need to present to the county and present to the county commissioners. And that's what we're trying to come up with. And to do that, it needs to be funded. We need to have some type of money that we can hire somebody that can pick the ball up and start channeling, okay, this is the type of program we need to present to the county, or we need to present to county commissioners, Harris County legislators. Or we're just gonna sit around and just do nothing and it's gonna flood again. Or like Bob said, I mean, look at the problems that the city of Conroe's having now. I mean, they're in dire straits there for water.
I mean, they could get water
Yeah.
from the lake any day they want to.
They got water that they
Right. I mean, all they
don't
do,
want to buy from the lakes.
they don't want to buy from lake. So I looked at that and I said, well, it's their choice, right? Yeah, we got the water treatment systems that have capacity.
We need to move
I know,
along. That's
but,
it.
I'd like to
That
see.
enough for tonight, Walt?
Let's leave it on for next week and for next meeting.
Okay, we'll revisit it, okay?
Everybody think about it.
Yeah. Maybe we can tap some of your resources, Keith, and maybe we can get these people's attention. Okay. Agenda item 12, discuss and act on creation of an ad hoc committee to prepare a request for qualifications and make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees for selection of an engineering consulting firm with the specific purpose of obtaining recommendations and cost estimates to rehab the existing WRF number 1 to extend its life for 25 years. Trustee Maggart, would you like to pick that ball up and run with it again?
Well, we talked about this for about 20 minutes, and I think one question came up was what would this cost? So I put this back on the agenda that we get an ad hoc committee of technically trained people, and I'm not interested in being involved, but I understand wastewater a little bit, but what I would suggest is that we get a committee and we interview some engineers and let that committee come back to us and let the 2 or 3 engineers go out and take a look at this plant and come back with a cost estimate of what they would charge to come up with a plan for a 25-year rehab rebuild. So that's the purpose. Of no money, but we would get 3 people. We can all put our heads together. I've got one fellow on my board that basically, has worked with consultants in real familiar with the area, and he would be a good one as one of the 3. But that's what I suggest, and that would be their only objective was to come and tell us what they would recommend. Number 1, what they would charge to give us a proposal and what their cost estimate. Of course, they would come up with the cost estimate. So to give us a cost estimate of what they would charge us to give us a 25-year plan for our existing plan.
So I recall the last conversation we had was similar to that. We asked, how is this different than the repair in place option that we're already paying for with a new independent engineering firm? And I still don't see how I think this is duplicate to that.
Well, probably.
I just finished, if I could. And we already have 4 options we're pursuing with a new independent engineering company that's highly qualified, just like I think the last one was highly qualified. So this will be now a 3rd kind of assessment that you're asking for us to spend more money on something that I think we're going to get from the last thing we just approved last meeting. I'm still where I was last meeting, which was trying to figure out why we're doing this again, and then creating kind of a smaller group to direct another engineering firm to come up with another answer. And how's that going to square with the one we're already getting? It seems, I don't understand why we would want to spend more money to do something we're already doing for a second time. That's where I was last time. I'm kind of in the same place.
My opinion is
Has
you
anything
got,
changed?
yeah, you got four options that these people are gonna come up with. We're paying them $500,000, it's my understanding. So 400, $500,000 to come up, and they're gonna analyze all four of these. Now, why wouldn't the very first one would be, we're gonna analyze repair in place first? That should be the first thing, and they should come back and say, okay, we don't recommend repair in place because this, and that. That one should be the first thing. Why are we doing four different items? And I don't want to get into the politics of the consulting business, but they get paid by how much money they spend.
Well, why wouldn't this next group do the same thing?
No, because they're only going to come up with a cost to repair in place. They're not going to come up with $300 million to build a brand new plant and junk this one.
How is it repair in place?
No.
How's that different than the repair in place
Because,
option?
because they're going to give us three more. Do you think that they're going to end up and they're going to recommend repair in place? You think?
I don't
they
know.
will?
I don't think that's what
Well-
we're asking the professionals to do. We've asked them to do that.
Well, these are going to be professionals. I'd like to say, my opinion is we need a second opinion. The original proposals from the River Authority, they were going to build a new plant. They never considered repair
I
in place.
understand that.
right?
I understand that.
So,
So now we have four new options.
No.
And I think what you're saying is you want one to be duplicated
I
again.
want one not controlled by the River Authority, but controlled by our board. That's the difference.
Why is that any different? I don't
Well,
think.
it sounds like it's,
Consulting engineers have a responsibility to protect the public. These are something that most petroleum engineers, which you're a fine one, that's not part of the equation. You're profit motivated. Protecting the public interest is a core value of a registered professional engineer in doing water and wastewater work in the state of Texas and throughout the nation.
yeah, I don't want to, unless,
You guys have said, I heard trust 3 times here.
no,
And either
basically,
there's
we
an element
want,
of trust
we
that you have
want,
a concern.
we want-
I don't have that concern
okay,
about trust.
well, you trust the River Authority.
Well,
Well, these recommendations
people who
aren't coming
working
from the
for
River
them.
Authority.
Sure they are.
They're
They
coming from
hired
the,
them. They hired, Bob, they hired them. Once they hire them,
Why would they be
If-
beholden to you?
would
if you're gonna hire
that
them?
would be the same,
No,
what's
no.
the
If
glove
it-
that fits on the one
no,
hand fits
the
on the
River
other.
Authority, they hire these engineers, but they write the checks.
So you're
So they are responsible.
challenging the professional opinion of an engineer.
That doesn't
Sounds
mean
to
they're all-
me.
Yeah, that doesn't mean they are all smart. That, a lot of them.
So you're gonna find 3 new smart people that we haven't found yet, that don't work for one of these
Hey,
big firms?
we all know what your position is.
So I'll just say
This
this.
is, this is,
a minute.
it's on the table. It's on the
I'm trying
table.
to debate, I'm
Hey,
trying to
hey,
understand.
no,
You said
it's on the
you know
table.
my position, Ken.
Okay, but the River
We've
Authority.
never talked about this.
Okay, the River Authority has hired engineers. I think that we are the ones that are paying the bill, so we ought to have a second opinion. And all we need is an opinion of what they're gonna charge us for a engineering study. And then that part of that study would be repair in place and how much they would say, how much it would have cost her. They might come back and say, no, it's unrepairable, even though I gave you the data that it's working just fine for the last 5 years. You
But
know,
this is not budgeted, is it? I don't believe this yet another evaluation.
no, this is nothing. All we need to do is put together an ad hoc committee and go out and interview some engineers. Wouldn't cost us anything but some people's time. And come back and say, the committee would come back and say, okay, we got 3 engineers and they're interested and here's what they will charge us. Wouldn't cost-
So I've gone back over the last decade and looked at multiple reports from several consulting engineers. CDM Smith whose report was delivered January 2015. The work would have been done the previous year. Freeze and Nichols, March 2017. Ardora, March 2019. Kimley Horn, November 2020. And then Freeze and Nichols again in this past year or so. I think the foundation of what we're talking about really rests with the initial findings of CDM Smith. And they identified 12 deficiencies of various seriousness in this wastewater treatment facility. I think this has been studied to death, and the time for action is now. We shouldn't be screwing around any longer.
So I'll just make, I didn't go back to 2015. I asked the SRA, for information. Okay.
I had no problem with it.
No, I'm just saying. So, the first time I asked them, I was with the water pipe. You mean, and I'm just, I'll give you an example. So, they told me that the documentation for the replacing the water pipe was in this document. That's the total justification. So in the documentation, it says, the engineer who wrote this, he said, oh, the 50-year life was established. I was told that was provided by the SRA. So they pay $150,000 and they give them the answer. And see, that's the problem I have is when I go to the stakeholders meetings that, we didn't attend, and we start talking about, about the condition of the existing plant. What I'm told is that, oh, we have all that data in this 2-foot stack of documents I got hand delivered. And I went through those documents over and over again. And finally they admitted, oh, there is no condition assessment of the current plant other than remaining useful life. And how they got that, I don't know. And so then after a while, they handed this stuff.
That's a measure that's used to determine.
No, I understand that.
Condition of something, giving you its remaining useful
And I
life.
used that.
Okay.
I used that. So I got the remaining useful life. How they got it, I don't know, but I didn't really care. I said, let's do that. And so the next thing they do is they hand out this document. This document, but there's no cost on it. And so, I looked at that and this is interesting. Could we get cost on it? And Ed told me the first time it would take $150,000 and 3 months to properly, prepare this document. And you guys are in a rush to pass this thing before the election.
No,
So you did not vote on it.
I actually asked for the money on that
Well,
slide.
I asked for it in my mind. Yeah.
Just so you know.
Yeah, and so, they paid, you guys rushed it instead of being 3 months and 150, it was a month and 50. And we got this. And I said, this is interesting. So what I did was went back to the technical assessment and the remaining useful life, remaining useful life. And I mapped these projects to the remaining useful life. And I come out and I didn't bring it with me, but I have a matrix and it looks like they say all this had to be done in the next 5 years. When you map it to the remaining useful life, it says about, $2.7 million a year for the next 5 years would take care of all the projects that are mapped into that 5 years. See, the problem I have
Is this a germane to the
Yes,
agenda item?
Yes,
If you set me
yes,
straight,
it is, because
it sounds like you're rehashing what has been done.
No. What I'm trying to say is
I
he
accept
has
your correction.
he has a reason. And the reason is that we wanted independent analysis from what the SRA does. And see, SRA's had many opportunities to provide an input that would satisfy that answer, and they have chosen not to. They haven't. And so we spent $2 million on, the technical, that's called the shareholders meeting, and no one ever asked. They said, well, no one was interested in the condition of the existing plant. I was told that. And so I guess what Kent is looking at is, it's like they have a consultant to watch the other consulting to build the plants. That's who they hired to do this project. That's interesting. And all we're saying is that we'd like a consultant because none of us are experts. I'm not an expert, to verify what they're giving us is correct. To basically look at this and provide advice, and a report in the end to understand the condition of this plant, because it's not been established. And when I take the data from these documents and I map it out, and it looks like the last discussion we had with the SRA, they said it's the cement, David. But if you look at the remaining useful life, they're not addressing cement. Most of what they're addressing is pumps, valves, gearboxes, actuators, mechanical and electrical devices. And when we knew those, their life jumps right back up to 20 years, 25 years. And, I don't see it in looking at the data have, and now we're going to have them do it again. And, why would we get a different answer? I think we need an independent, as much as we can get independent. And I think Murray Smith has experiences. He recently joined the MUD, and he can provide, some reference guys that come in and help us understand, the status of this plant. And, I know you.
For this system, man. I mean,
What's
I'm
that?
kind of curious, why did you vote to allow them to? I mean, we all voted.
Well, I'll
And
be
you
honest
spent
with you.
500,000 and now you want to spend money again.
Well, let me-
Because
No, we're not
trust these people.
We're not wanting to spend money yet.
Well, you're trying to get,
Well,
you
let me-
guys are trying to get to the
let me
answers
say
that you
this.
want to get.
The way I took that in the beginning, and I'll be honest with you, the repair the existing facility was not included. It was 1, 2, and 3 options. There wasn't a 4th option.
It's
And
right
then-
here.
No, let's go one. No, let's go one. No, let's go one. So, we had it, it wasn't included. Ed told me he wouldn't do it in this meeting. He wouldn't include the 4th option. And I said, okay. And then I think the first set of MUD meetings in that following week, it wasn't included. When they got to mine, all of a sudden, it was included. I was saying, okay, I wonder how that happened. And, be honest with you, I was happy that it was included. And I wanted to add an agenda item to reorder that priority. And, I talked to Eric, and Eric said, well, it was a compromise, David, and you can't, go back on the compromise. So, this all went boom, boom, boom. We went from not included to included. And I believe this discussion among several of us was going on, before that. And so I'm okay with, all 4 options. I think personally, we should do the 4th option first and understand the conditions of the plant before we go off and talk about redesigning the plant. And I look at the documents that I've been provided, and I asked them for the documents. I've done freedom of information aspect requests. I've looked at all these documents that they provided, and I think we need to take a look at the what the status of the current plan is, because if it's cement, there are many tests you can give or put on cement that will tell you that, it's aging factor. And I don't think any of them have been done. And I don't see it. And I think we need some help to
Anyway,
understand this.
Bob, let me just, you know why I'm here? You all got an estimate from the River Authority for 153 million. And then 2 or 3 months later, they had another estimate. I assume these are consultants. They had another estimate for 226 million. They put it out into the public, big presentation. And then you all got another estimate of 289 million, right? You got those 3 numbers, and I'm sure those were fine consultants. Now, which one would you hire?
So
The guy that came up with 153, right? But the point is if they, within 10 months, they went from 153 to 226 to 289 million, and they never considered, well, once it got to 289, rehab in place starts looking real good. And they never considered it. That's why I'm here. And this is what I'm proposing, that we get a committee together and look at repair and replace, because now it looks a hell of a lot better when it was 289 than maybe it was when it was 153. And they never considered any of those until now, until we had a lot of people that got elected. And that's why there's a lot of new people on this board.
Yeah, you're going off what the agenda is. You
Okay.
got the
No, but the
agenda
point
item. You're
is-
going off
okay.
the agenda.
Okay, let's vote on it.
Vote on it then.
Okay, good.
can I,
Further discussion? Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
if I can just key on something you said, tell me if I misstate what you said. You want to get to the answer that you want to get is what you said to David.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the crux of their position, right? Is that if you can hire an engineer to get the answer that you want to get, well, aren't you questioning the SJRA of doing the exact same thing? That they're hiring an engineer that gets to the answer that they want to get? I mean, that's.
I don't know how an engineer firm like that stays in business doing that kind of work. I just couldn't imagine.
You're talking about
We're talking about it.
engineers that
I
you
don't laugh because we've hired the biggest engineers in the world. And if we didn't trust what they said to us as a major corporation, it'd be really tough to get anything done.
That's why there are a lot of engineering firms.
So then,
There's not just one.
We can.
Can we call question, guys? We've gone.
Do we have a, I don't see anything about voting on it.
Well, it is an action item.
We need to act on how many people are in favor of creating a 3-person ad hoc committee to contact and come back with some recommendations for strictly repair and replace. And we don't have to spend any money. All we got to do is create a committee and
Get information.
get information. That's the whole idea. And come back, and then they can give us a cost estimate. We can select one of them. Once they give us a cost estimate on what it would have cost for them to prepare a report to repair and place.
And does it delay the overall study and process? that
No,
SRA has in
because they're
place?
completely independent.
So it doesn't cost any money and it doesn't delay the process.
why are we doing this? How's it not gonna cost money? I'm stunned.
Yeah.
We're not asking to
We're
spend.
not
money.
asking to spend any money tonight. All you gotta
We're gonna go
do,
out and find an engineer that did-
all you gotta do is,
So there's a motion to.
Oh, there's a
create
motion.
an ad hoc committee, correct?
To get information.
we have a second.
Is there a second?
A motion and a second. Further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. May we have a voice
May
vote,
we-
please?
Well, yeah,
Um,
that'd be good.
That'd be good.
Roll call vote?
Yeah, trustee Wilson,
No.
trustee Lashevsky,
No.
trustee Gainer,
No.
trustee Hauk,
Yes.
trustee Maggard,
Yes.
trustee Lincoln,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Connett,
No,
trustee Lux, no. Trustee Martin,
No.
okay. That's 6 against 4 in favor. The motion fails. Thank you, gentlemen. Agenda item 13, receive the general manager's report.
Nothing to report. I have something in the, six.
Okay. Agenda item 14, Veritex One billing software update. Maureen? Yeah, okay, very good.
We are in the build and test phase at a 81% completion. We're doing data validation and UAT, about in the middle of that. And Vertex One has expressed the need to extend the go live date, and we're working to identify a new date. Hopefully by the end of this week, we'll have a new date.
What's the reason for the extension again?
There were 3 specific reasons, trying to develop the rate tables in their system, commercial specifically. The bill print PDF is in somewhere of development on their side, and we would like one more data migration to get sort of fine tuned rest rehearsal and go live.
Any questions? Okay, agenda item 15, receive staff or ad hoc committee updates on the following. Personnel Committee met on the July 17th and August 13th, and we will further delve into that matter in executive session in our next agenda item. Audit and Finance Committee, Trustee Wilson.
Last Friday to go over the budget that we just went over our report. And meet again if an issue comes up that we need to further review for that.
Okay. Public Education, Trustee Gainer.
Yes, the Public Education Committee met today. We assessed changes to the communication schedule and key messaging to include timelines for multiple wastewater treatment facility option assessments, results from the condition assessment of the AC water mains, major project finance and funding, potential 2025 rollback elections and the timing related thereto. Mud-related workflows, including decision matrix and the supplemental agreement. And rollout of information concerning projects that are currently in the pipeline. For example, what we discussed earlier, the new elevated storage tank number 6 and the removal of lift stations and various other smaller types of projects. The next key element is we modified the structure of the proposed working advisory group. That's a community group to assist in this process. The makeup will be approximately as follows: Village Association representation of 8, business representatives 2, MUDs 10, Howard Hughes 1, Township 1 or 2, and elected representatives or staff such as Representative Toth or Crenshaw 3. So that's approximately what, 25. We agreed that the website for all this infrastructure renewal for communicating with the general public will be released on September the 19th, 2024, after presentations at individual MUD meetings during that same week. And that's my report.
Thank you. Questions to any of these reports?
So are we releasing to the public plans that have not been funded or voted on?
I think I said to you that it's just the website, and we've already worked with SJRA on this process to go through. It's not we, they have the contract. Let me just go back.
We voted to fund
But
it.
we voted, yes, indeed. There will be presentations at the MUD meetings before this goes public.
What did we vote for? You said we voted.
For this, the funding of this committee to retain this consultant.
Right, I'm concerned about the River Authority had a public meeting where they presented a multi-year budget for millions of dollars that implied that money had been approved and was being ready to be spent. In reality, that didn't happen.
Yes, that's why
Okay.
there's been a change to the communication schedule and what we're going to do. However, the website is just a placeholder at this point in time for information to be provided to the public. So, for example, a lot of you people in the Woodlands, they don't know the history of the infrastructure here in the Woodlands, the condition of it, what needs to be done, how some of these big projects are require quite a bit of research effort. This is the whole reason we're going through this process right now, reassessing 4 options as opposed to going ahead with 1 option, which was the previous situation. So all of that money that's been spent has to be explained to people, just on this alone.
Yeah, but we haven't approved anything. They haven't demonstrated at all that there's a need for the change. They skipped that step, right? In terms of that we have today, the SRA, in the stakeholder committee, they admit that they didn't bother about looking at the condition of the existing plant. So you're communicating needs as an assumption.
There's multiple timelines, I said, for the option assessments, the results from, there's 5 different timelines running concurrently here that need to be communicated. What is going to be happening on September the 19th is the release of a placeholder website to start populating with information to educate the public and be transparent about what's going on. One of the key things that will be done initially is to update people on projects for infrastructure replacements and new construction that's already in the pipeline, funded through the R&R funds. Okay. For example, I gave an example of the elevated storage tank and the removal of lift stations, et cetera. So yeah, I don't see any issue with putting a website out there after the MUDs have had the opportunity to review.
So wouldn't it be nice for the trustee board to have an opportunity to review I mean, you guys have been working, in a non-transparent way.
That's what.
I mean, so what's the cost? I mean, this is the first I hear for it. You've been meeting for months and months and months, haven't you? I mean, none of us, I haven't participated. I was never invited to be part of it.
Well, I'm terribly sorry.
Well, I'm
I was appointed by the
well,
chairman here,
Yeah.
so, hard feelings. That's
yeah,
tough.
yeah, that's tough. That's right.
Yeah,
But I'm just saying,
This all started several years ago.
yeah.
Can I translate what he's saying is the work of the group thus far is going to be presented to the MUDs and the trustees so they can see. what
Okay, so is this the extent of the detail?
There's been
No, this-
updates monthly.
This is a high level summary, and I've been giving every time we meet a summary of,
But
and you'll get a full rendition
I understand.
of what.
I'm kind of like Brad. I like to see things in writing. We really
He's
have-
just telling you that the next MUD meetings, everyone's gonna see the whole website up here on a projector and walk through the whole thing, see all the verbiage, all
You
the
might
text.
even have handouts.
And,
Well,
and just look at it before it goes
We
public.
closed the door on that meeting at 5 PM this evening, so it'd be a little tough to get it put in the Chronicle.
So,
But you're not planning on putting out stuff that's not been approved.
correct, Mundo.
Exactly.
Good grief.
That's the key.
It's just a placeholder. So that's the nailed it, Ron. Very good. So, that's it.
So what's the funding? How much?
We approved this
That's all
budget from last year.
things
The
already.
thing he's talking about is to hire the PR firm that's helping.
Oh, okay.
That was in a budget 2
That
years
was-
ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all done.
That's not for any projects or anything like that. There's assumptions.
Anticipation of this, promoting this $300 million plan. That was
No,
the reason they funded.
Don't get ahead of your skis. We don't know.
no.
That's not helpful. That's not helpful. That's not a helpful comment.
You can predict the future. Go to Vegas, you'll do
Yeah.
great.
Yes.
Believe that we are about to adjourn to executive session. If there's no objection to that, we move to agenda item 16, Counselor.
Got an executive session.
And then I thought.
Same thing we're talking
Yes, but there's some differences.
We have executive session.
Yes, sir.
So.
You need to-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna-